Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55.
Hey, everybody. All right, we've got the celebrity meter just going off the roof today. I'm super excited. Our guest today is Ginny McCall, who has had this incredible career. She was a dancer on Broadway. For everybody our age listening and watching, we're going to talk about she spent 20 years doing commercials that we all know and love. And then, which is par for the course of the podcast, she is now living ageless and bold, having garnered a Guinness Book of World Record that we'll talk about. She's been on American Ninja Warrior 4 times, and she couldn't even do a pull-up in her 60s. So we're going to talk all about that. Ginny, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a delight.
Oh my gosh. I found you online. I started reading about you. I'm like, I have to have her on the podcast.
I just have to correct you in one thing. I was only on American Ninja Warrior for 3 times.
I'm sorry. Well, could you step it up, please, and make it for a 4th?
I need to do that.
My apologies. And it was so fun when you submitted everything, because I wanted to talk to you about this, but on the podcast, we always talk about the story, like what got you here. And then when you sent me everything, it's like, okay, let's talk about being a dancer on Broadway, because how amazing was that?
Oh, it was the peak of my life at that time to be on the Broadway stage. And then I got to understudy one of the leads. And she went away for 2 weeks, and then I got to play the role for 2 weeks straight. And I would walk down the Broadway and I would say, I'm playing a lead in a Broadway show. I mean, it's the top of the top. It's magical and exciting and worrisome and nerve-wracking, but the best of the best.
Wow. I got goosebumps when you said that, because I could just imagine. Because how old were you at the time? Early 20s, late teens?
Early 20s, yes. Yeah. About 24, wow. I think. Yeah.
Wow. That's how old my daughter is. Oh, that's exciting.
It was exciting, believe me.
Oh, gosh. And then you did a run, and I was looking at your YouTube, 20 years. Let's talk about what it's like to do commercials. And let's talk about some of the commercials you've done, because the people listening and watching have certainly heard them.
Well, that was a great time of life as well, because it was a wonderful way to make a living and to raise my kids, because you basically just audition and then every once in a while you get a job. So I had more time to spend raising the kids. But the commercials I did were everything from Jordache on Broadway, which was one of the greatest and fun commercials I did. And it's on YouTube. So that's the fun part, is people can see some of these from the 70s and 80s of Folgers and Sizzlelean and Behold and Folgers, Mr. Clean, Wonder Bread. I mean, so many, classics. And it was at a time where people did not have DVRs, so they watched the commercials. So they keep coming back every once in a while, because like Sizzlelean, I had to say, move over, bacon. There's something leaner. And the bacon would fly out. But in those days,
I remember that.
Do you? In those days, they didn't have all the special effects that they do now. So it actually had a guy on top of scaffolding with like a fishing wire that was attached to the bacon, and he would pick it up and fly it out. So you can actually see the bacon bending in the middle. But, and an actor, when you're in production for a commercial, if you don't have your lines, when the main character, the bacon,
right,
is finally right, they finally get it exactly the way they want it, then, it's bad news. So you really want to be very prepared for, doing it a million times, which was a fun time of life for sure.
Now, how did you get into that? I mean, if you were dancing, obviously you were acting as well, but if somebody's watching, and we've had so many amazing over 50 influencers who are getting into, online type commercials and representing products and things like that. But back in the 70s, how did you do that?
How did I do? Well, I got into it just being, listening to people around and different things that you do, because I like to look at it as a tree trunk with all the branches. There's tons of different ways you can go in the acting field. And this one is lucrative because you get residuals for every time it played on TV. So that was a great thing. But it was a matter of going to an agent. And in those days, you could actually knock on the door and get inside and introduce yourself. And I happened to be doing Pippin at the time, which was, a good intro. And that's what they started sending me out. And I just kind of was in that file of mom and housewife and happy
That's so
mom.
Fun.
Actually, so you can see it right there as Jordache and Broadway.
I saw that. So are you from New York originally?
No, I grew up in Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. And very different. And I left when I was 20 years old. And I went to the city, and a lot of people said you're never going to make it. So many people go there. There are millions of actors. But, you're young. You want to give it a try. And I gave myself a goal of 3 to 5 years. And you have to give it time, because it takes time to meet people and know where you're going and everything. So that was a rude change from Knoxville, Tennessee to New York City at that age. It was like, wow, things are just alive in the middle of the night. It's crazy.
Right. Well, we're not in Tennessee anymore.
No. A lot of lessons learned, that's for sure. And one of them was a Southern accent, because I would go to an auditions and they would say, what part of the South are you from? And so I had to work on that a lot to get that just, general American. And unfortunately, you lose some of your heritage by changing that, because that's a part of your personality. So every once in a while, I get to play it in a role in film, and that is fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, my husband's from North Carolina, and when we go back to North Carolina, he has a little bit, but get him around family, and it comes out, and that's who he is. That's where he grew up.
It's a part of who you are. Yes.
Right. And it's funny. I recently interviewed a friend for the podcast who's a very successful writer, and she graduated from college and said, "Oh, I'm going to New York City." And she said, "I had $300 and I went to the city." And she's like, "That was not a good idea. Like, that was not. You don't go to New York City with $300 and think you're going to make it." And she ended up doing okay. But same thing, knocking on doors. Can I write for you? Can I write for you?
Yeah, I had sold my car. I had $2,000 at the time. This was in 1972. And that was going to last me, because I wanted to spend all my time working on getting in a dance troupe or being on scholarship. And I would walk 40 blocks to get to places. I mean, I go to parties to get food sometimes. And we got furniture off the street. Because people would put the furniture they didn't want anymore on the street a certain day. So, I mean, it was, you make do, and you can do it when you're in your 20s.
Right. You do what you have to do. And that's what she said too. You figure it out. And so then you were saying, then you got married, started a family, could do the commercials as you wanted to. And did you do voiceover work, radio work?
A little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
And those are the days that they sliced it. You had to be right on. You couldn't stop and start again. They would take the razor blade and cut the tape, if things were not. But there were some amazing voiceover artists that I was able to work with. That was a lot of fun.
How fun. You just had such a fun life. So then you raise your kids, and then your daughter gets you into, is it weightlifting, health and fitness?
Well, I never lost the movement. Because once you're, a dancer, or once you've done sports growing up or whatever, you've got the discipline of movement. So it's not as if I was, not doing anything. And I hadn't been for the past 30 years when I retired. But Jessie, my daughter, was doing American Ninja Warrior. And to date, this will be her 11th season, the one coming up. She's like one of the top ninjas, particularly female ninjas that have gone the farthest. And, I looked at her and I was the cheerleader, like many other moms that are out there, moms and dads. And I always cheering for and excited for her. But this one time I looked at her and I went, she's so strong and healthy. And she was like a real inspiration for little girls who didn't know they could do this kind of things, compete against men and, together, all in one fell swoop, like I guess it was 19 plus at that point. Now it's 15 or 16 plus. So it's different. And it's kids that have grown up with ninja. But in her time, it was, she had muscles and she just was a picture of health to me. And I remember this so clearly. I want to get strong. And my generation growing up were not encouraged. It was like, you don't want to get too bulky. It's not feminine. You will remain a spinster. I don't know if that's still a word this day and age, but I mean, those are kind of, not really talked about. You just assimilated those kind of things and the stereotype thing. So I had no upper body strength. Dance you have a different kind of strength.
Sure.
I did not have muscles. Let me put it that way. And,
and for dance, you probably can't have muscles, at least probably not ballet, but I would think it would, would deter your movement a little bit, right?
No, you're doing more lengthening. So you're not concentrating on the strengthening, but more, elongating. And I was not a ballet dancer. I was a modern dancer. So that's more interpretive dancing, not like they're doing today. I don't think I could make it as a dancer today. So I asked her, what should I, do? And she gave me a lot of ideas, but the one that really stuck with me was pull-ups. And that's got to be about the hardest thing you can do. People are trying to do pull-ups constantly. You'll see that on all the social media. And so I got my little bar and put it in the door frame and, worked the best I could with handles and sent her a video. And she was like, oh, I'm so glad you're doing this. And this is wonderful. But Mom, that's not a pull-up. A pull-up is when you bring it all the way down under your chin and then you straighten totally out. So I went, okay, I'm going to go to a strength and conditioning coach, which I did. And I had a goal there too. And that's a recurring theme in my life is always goals, even every day that I wake up. But I said to him that I wanted to get 5 pull-ups. And I thought that was an attainable goal. That's another one of the things I do. I try to make it attainable. It's not like I went in and said, I want to do 15 pull-ups. I just wanted to do at least 5. And so you work on many different things. You work on your shoulders and your back and your chest and your arms and your legs. It's, whole body. You don't just go in there and every day work on pull-ups. So, after about 7 months, I started to feel more, I felt more definition and tone, and people would remark on it. And that gave me more positive energy to keep going. And it took me a year to get 1 pull-up.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, congratulations for not giving up. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I could do a pull-up anymore.
No,
I really don't.
A lot of people are very surprised. In fact, they can't even just hold onto a bar and hang, which is actually very good for grip strength and many different reasons. When you're hanging from a bar, that's where you would start, learning to do a pull-up. But there's something that's really a sense of accomplishment when you can get that 5 pull-ups or 10 pull-ups or whatever it is. So, that's kind of how I got into it. I have a friend who built the obstacles in his yard because we have no ninja gyms, I should say, close to us. So I went there and I was always very curious about the first obstacle, which was a series of 5 steps, and they were on an angle and they got higher, and it seemed impossible to me. And it was, I felt that I was going to break my ankle, jumping from step to step on an angle. But we took baby steps. We brought the steps in closer and did it little by little. And once I got through, then we pushed it out a little bit. And again, I sent the video to my daughter. Look what I can do. But that obstacle, the athletes make it look so easy. And I thought for sure watching it that I'd be able to do that. And in my first time on American Ninja Warrior, I fell on that obstacle and it was devastating. And I felt that I had let everybody down, friends and family and seniors all over the place. So, and every time I saw it on TV, and not myself because I didn't show it, luckily, I went, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? Why couldn't I get that? And it just, I think because of the rejection, I mean, not rejection, but the failure, it just egged me on to learn to do it better, that there had to be some reason that I didn't get that. So I think in a lot of times, you know, we have failures in life, but sometimes you just have to push through and, you know, go to the bottom of the tank, as my swim coach will say, and empty the tank. And you may not think that you can get there, but you have to dig deep and keep going. And that's that resilience and perseverance are some of the things that are so important, I think, in life for anything that you're doing is don't give up. You're not too old. It's never too late to chase a dream. And I always say age and inexperience shouldn't be any kind of a barrier. It's just part of the journey.
And I find that as we age, we get more confident to try things like this. Like, do you think you could have done this in your 30s or your 40s? Like, do you think mentally, or was this just something that, again, as we get older, it's like, I can do this. I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to get it done.
I guess getting onto Broadway was one of those things where, or being in acting, you're rejected all the time, or failure, or however you want to put it. But it's like, well, somebody out there is going to find what I have and they're going to want it. So you just keep knocking on doors, and sometimes you have great days and other days nothing comes through. So, and I wasn't too, I was fine with doing little jobs. Like I did the Tarantella at Mama Leone's. So it's not, I mean, I may have gotten $100 for it or something, but, you know, I was in a mime troupe for a year. So it's not being afraid to do, you know, to work your way up. You know, you don't
Let's
always
talk about the mime troupe. Hold on. That sounds, how fun was that? And how hard is it not to speak?
Very hard. It was a learning experience for sure, but it was love. We went around to schools. I traveled around to schools, and they loved it. They just loved it. We had, you know, it was comedic, and there's so much audience response, and of course that makes the whole thing. Like on Broadway too, it becomes magical because once that curtain opens, it's like magic. You know, it's and the same thing, you know, in film and all that. Once you see the finished product, again, there's that wonderful sense of accomplishment.
Was there one big lesson you learned just starting out being on Broadway? Like something that just took you through? I mean, obviously it's got to be hard work. What do you have, 8 shows a week?
Yes. Saturdays and Sundays were just matinees. Add another one to it. So I didn't have weekends. I think it was belief in myself. That would probably be the biggest thing, because a lot of times other people are not necessarily encouraging. There might be some jealousy in there, and it's like you have to put all the other things out there. Like a ninja, I always say people should get buddies and be around people who are encouraging. You want to go out and walk, find somebody to walk with that encourages you. That's so important to the whole process.
On American Ninja Warrior, what was your first time that you went on? Like, what was the biggest obstacle? Like, what was the hardest part for you? And now that you've done it 3 times, you know, how did you overcome that?
Well, first of all, I will tell you how I overcome it was, I looked at it and I went, well, you know, I don't really have to do it anymore. But it was something in me that I went, you know, 10 years from now, I'm going to be really upset that I didn't go back again and conquer this. And that's really what led me to this, the third time doing it. Is like, I'm much stronger now. I didn't know what I was doing the first time. I barely could do, one pull up. So, and I hadn't been on a lot of obstacles. I hadn't even gone to any competitions. So I think that I just had to, learn from the failures and keep going and get up. And in fact, I did this movie Palms with Diane Keaton. It's one of the themes there.
I was going to talk to you about that. One of our guests was from the Palms, the Sun City Palms. Sherry Cantrell was an earlier guest on the podcast. So everybody needs to go back and watch that and learn about the Palms. But talk about what Diane Keaton did.
Well, yeah, she put together, she was at a retirement place, and they said you could make any club that you want to make. And so she decided that she wanted to have cheerleaders. And it's a comedy. It's so much fun and laughter involved in it, in her trying to put together 8 cheerleaders over 67 and above. And I had the one that got to do the splits in it. So that was pretty...
That's impressive.
That's pretty fun. But that was one of the things was, you're never too old. It's never too late. If you fail, get up, train harder, and do it again. And I kind of feel that Palms was somewhat of a story of my life, because that problem and that failure just drove me to train harder and get better at it.
Yeah, it's great lessons. And so many people that I interview and that are listening and watching the show is, they're starting over. There's a new chapter for them. So either they, were in corporate, many got pushed out of corporate. It's like, oh, now what do I do? Many were stay-at-home moms or worked part-time or, ran the swim team, ran the booster club. And now they're, hey, the kids are gone. I'm empty nesting. We're not paying for sports and college. And so we've got a little money. Like, I want to do something, and it's hard. And sometimes, like you said, nothing is easy. We're not going to just, hey, here's empty nest. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to make $1 million. No, it's going to be hard. But knowing, and I think there's a confidence that comes with being over 50, over 60, where you're willing to fail and pivot. And I say all the time that what I've done now since I've turned 50, I speak to college students all the time, and I'll say to them, how many of your parents are over 50? And of course, they raise their hands, and, and how many of you think your parents are just done and retired and boring and old? And, they laugh. But then I tell them, in my 50s, I started being a lifestyle host on TV. I launched a podcast that's top 5% globally. I speak in front of thousands of people. Like, if you had said that at 35, no way.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. For Broadway and dance, you rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. And, I did it on Broadway for a year, and every step has to be the same. You can't be in the wrong place. Everything is so well rehearsed. But now all of a sudden on Ninja Warrior, you don't get a chance to go on those obstacles before the show. You don't even get a chance to see them before the show. And they give you a walkthrough, and they have one person demo each obstacle, and that's it. You don't get to touch it. If you touch it, then you're out. So and the same thing with speaking is that now it's off the cuff. It's not like, doing commercials where you have a set, or film where you have a set script that you have to follow through. So it's a whole different ball game out there. But yeah, I think you really have to find something that you really want to do, that you love doing, whether it's woodworking but I always want people to do some kind of movement, because I think it's so important to our health, to our balance, to our muscles, to our bone density, to, a million different things, fighting disease, empowering your brain. I would like people to know earlier that if they start doing this kind of movement, that the things that they can avoid in old age. We want to be independent for as long as possible. And now we're seeing more and more seniors out there walking and running and biking and doing all sorts of pickleball is the big thing. But, these things are so important for the cardio, for your heart, the strength for your muscles and your bone density. And I wish people understood that the way they understand that you have to brush your teeth. This is just a part of life. And we need to do that to stay healthy.
And I think it will change. And of course, we have the internet now and social media. But I look at like my kids in college, and we all joked about this, that, we weren't drinking. My daughter has a water bottle with her all day long. She's sipping water. I might have had a bottle of water my entire freshman year in college.
How did we live? I don't know how did we get to this point?
I know. And I, like you, got much healthier later in life. And really, like, I always walked a lot, but now, during COVID, my husband and I actually kind of created our own workout, but we work out when we walk with weights. And, but I feel the best I've ever felt. It's like, well, don't tell me I'm not supposed to wear shorts or skirts in, almost 60, because my legs look better now than they did in my 20s.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? That you can look like, I feel stronger than I've ever felt before in my life. Yeah, even being a dancer, a professional dancer. And now I just feel like I've gone to, better heights,
It's just so great. So great.
And I would love to tell your audience, though, is that I had, when I was in my 40s, I was diagnosed with osteopenia. And that is the step before osteoporosis. Now, I'd never heard of that before, strangely.
I haven't heard of it.
You haven't heard of osteopenia? Well, then let me let you know.
Please.
It is the step before. And if you lift weights and do resistance, you can maybe, not everybody, but maybe you can do without getting osteoporosis. I was able to reverse osteopenia back to normal after 2 years of lifting weights. And when I found that out, I wanted, and doctors will say this, it's important to, lift weights, but go to somebody professional to show you how to do it, because it's too easy to hurt yourself. I have to always say that. But I think it's important to know that if you take these steps and you do things that are going to keep that kind of a disease away. Now, some people are going to need the medicine or the statins or whatever, but you can possibly never have to deal with it. And that's what I want people to know. That and muscle too. You start to lose muscle. Even at age 30, by age 70, you've lost, I think, it says about 50% of your muscle mass.
We've had several people on talking about, fitness people, and that's so important, is the muscle, is the weights. You've got to have that. The cardio is great, but you really need to do that.
So I think a lot of it is mental, though. That's the other thing, is that we have so many things that we say, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I can't do that. I can't. That has too many ingredients. I'll never fix that recipe. We just talk ourselves down. It's like the little devil on the shoulder saying, you can't do that. You can't swim across the pool. You can't, it's like, I can't. Think how many times you say that during the day. But if you set your mind to it, you can do a lot more than you think you can. You'd be surprised at that. And I think that mentally, we have to push a lot of that negativity aside. And that's the hardest part, getting going, getting started. But once you get started and you have to make a commitment. It's not just saying, it's New Year's and I've got to lose some weight. It's like, I want to get stronger, or whatever your thing is. I'm going to start this class, and you commit to it and you make it a habit, and then you build on that. And then you can't let it go either. You want to continue, if it's 3 times a week that you're walking, you want to continue on that track.
And I think you are just the absolute epitome of that, from, leaving Tennessee and becoming a dancer on Broadway, and then doing commercials and come on, you were in a movie with Diane Keaton. Like
I know.
that's, wow. And now what you've done in your 60s, you couldn't do a pull-up. Now you can do a pull-up. You've been on American Ninja Warrior 3 times. Let's talk about your world record real quick. Share that with everybody because that's
yes.
amazing.
Okay. And I have that. See those behind me? That's all Guinness World Records. And it was a surprise. It wasn't something that I went after. I just got old. I'm the oldest female ninja competitor in the world. In the world.
Congratulations.
I mean, in the world is amazing. And it has opened up the world to me as well. I've talked to India and South Africa and different places in Europe and Mexico and Canada and all over. And, we're all facing the same thing. How to get moving, how to get our seniors going, but people in general on, a healthier pathway. And that they just came to me and said, you're the oldest. They got it from, I guess, one of the leagues that I do ninja in. And the age that they had, I was like, where did they get that age? And then, I was talking to my daughter and I said, I don't understand. 'Cause I did American Ninja Warrior when I was 66. And she says, Mom, that was America. This is the world. And then I just went, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. And we did 2 records ourselves together as a tandem, as a fun little thing. Mother-daughter, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And congratulations.
Thank you. That's the other wonderful thing about this journey on American Ninja Warrior is that the bond that you have with your children, because, well, you have something that you do together that you both love and, it just brings you closer. And that's been one of the most exciting things about Ninja Warrior, I think.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I see a lot more parents in the gyms now that are giving it a try little by little.
Yeah.
Baby steps. If anybody else there wants to try, please do the baby steps because it's not something you want to suddenly run up a warped wall. You don't want to do that.
Well, you probably couldn't do that.
Not without breaking your Achilles tendon for sure.
Oh, God. Well, Ginny, we wrap up every show with the same 2 questions. What is the greatest thing you have accomplished since you turned 50?
I think I've kind of talked about that already. And I think it would have to be American Ninja Warrior for many different things, for overcoming the failures and getting up and doing it again and accomplishing. I was the oldest person to complete an obstacle. So that and the fact that it brought Jessie and I together closer. She was on the sidelines cheering for me. I mean, I've always been cheering for her. And now all of a sudden she's doing, she's doing the same thing I was doing. And it also I was able to show strength in it. And so I just feel that was a lead in to being able to talk to the world about or motivating more of the world that you can do it. Because if I can do it, and I'm 72, if I can do this, maybe you can, or you can do something close to it, or your own passion you can do. You can do it.
And you're 72. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Well, I definitely will be swimming competitively because I go to nationals and I've seen them at 80s and 90s. And they are so inspiring. I can't tell you how much I love seeing this woman at 96 that just broke 6 world records, and walks without a cane around a swimming pool. I see older people diving off the block. I see them doing flip turns and going 200 yards and having good mobility. And so that's something that I know I can continue to do. For sure. In 10 years, I would like to have accomplished a muscle up. It's sort of like as bad as a pull up. So,
oh, okay. Yeah. I don't even know what that is. Okay.
Yeah. It's not easy. So I'd like to be able to do that. I'd like to get another world record. I'm working on a couple of ideas. So far, they haven't stuck with Guinness, but I'll keep trying because now I know how to go about doing it.
That's a lot. Good for you.
Well, another film. I can always do film later, right? When I'm 90, I could do a film.
Of course.
I could, I could be the witch. I could be the funny lady.
What's the one that I think Shirley MacLaine was just in a movie or about to be in a movie, and I think she's 90, 89 or 90, which I couldn't believe, but.
Yeah, and so I got to keep my brain going with memory work. So definitely something like that. And continue to inspire people that you're never too old to move.
No, and I love that. I want everyone listening and watching, pay attention. You started in your 60s and look at you now. So it's never too late, which right. I love that message. So Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Will we see you anymore on American Ninja Warrior?
Well, not this season because they already filmed it all.
Okay.
But I may have the energy to try it. You have to send in a video. And so you have to be accepted. So I might do that next year.
All right. We'll be cheering for you. Thanks, Ginny.
That'll help. Thank you.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us, women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.